Some people love the thrill of danger. They say it makes them feel alive. Some others say danger gives them a glimpse of what it feels like to lose it all. Others just engage in dangerous activities for their ego and social validation. But do you think these same people will engage in these same activities if there was a 93% chance that they'd die? Watch this video to the end as it gives you some information your local TV stations won't broadcast beyond Continental lines.
Voilà le chacal! Il est taré, il est...
Over the years, globalization and modernization has made most cities of the world either very safe or very dangerous. And in modern-day Europe, it can be said that there are more safe places than dangerous places, but some of these dangerous places might come as a shock to you because you'd least expect them to be as dangerous. In today's video, we'll be talking about just a few, starting with a city of great tourist attraction, Marseille. Marseille, the second largest city in France and a bustling Mediterranean port, is renowned for its rich history, stunning coastline, and diverse cultural influences. However, beneath the beauty and charm lies a darker side. Marseille has a well-documented history of crime, particularly organized gang violence, making it one of the most dangerous cities in Western Europe. While tourists flock to its vibrant markets and historic landmarks, many parts of the city are plagued by violence, often with deadly outcomes. Marseille's reputation as a hub for organized crime dates back decades. The city's strategic location as a port has long made it a central point for drug smuggling and trafficking. Over the years, various mafia organizations, including the infamous French Connection, which dominated heroin trafficking in the mid-20th century, have left a legacy of lawlessness. Today, the city continues to grapple with drug-related violence and turf wars between rival gangs, particularly in the northern suburbs. These areas, including neighborhoods like La Castellane and Le Panier, are notorious for their dangerous living conditions. Gangs fight for control over the lucrative drug trade, and shootings, arson attacks, and even grenade assaults are not uncommon. The city's law enforcement has struggled to maintain control in these parts, which are often referred to as no-go zones for both the police and civilians. One of the most infamous aspects of Marseille's violence is the frequent gang-related murders. In 2022 alone, nearly 30 people were killed in drug-related violence. These brutal killings are often carried out in public places, adding to the fear and unpredictability surrounding daily life in some of the city's neighborhoods. In March 2023, two teenagers, aged 14 and 15, were found dead in a car in the northern suburbs of Marseille. The young boys were believed to have been involved in drug dealing, and their execution-style deaths sent shockwaves through the city. The incident took place amidst ongoing turf wars, where rival gangs routinely use violence to assert dominance over Marseille's drug trade. Such incidents reflect the severity of the situation, where even minors get caught in the crossfire of gang violence. In September of that same year, Salim, a 24-year-old delivery driver, was shot dead while working in the Cité de la Castellane, one of the most notorious neighborhoods in Marseille. The victim had no known criminal ties, but his killing underscores the unpredictable danger residents face, as innocent bystanders often get caught in the middle of gang wars. The murder of Salim led to widespread protests and calls for more governmental intervention to combat the ongoing violence. At the heart of Marseille's violence is the drug trade. The city is a key point in the trafficking of cannabis from North Africa and cocaine from South America. Rival gangs, often composed of young men, fight for control of these lucrative markets. The settling of scores, in a term frequently used to describe gang executions, is a regular occurrence, and violence tends to escalate as different factions vie for dominance in various parts of the city. This war over the drug trade has led to a rise in drive-by shootings and street executions, which are often carried out with military-style assault rifles like the Kalashnikov AK-47, a favored weapon among the gangs.
Ça, c'est un calibre. Ça ressemble beaucoup à une Kalachnikov, mais c'est israélien. Le calibre, c'est du 5,56, comme le FAMAS. Là, en ce moment, ça vaut 4 000 euros.
These brutal tactics have resulted in a high number of fatalities, many of whom are young men involved in drug dealing. But increasingly, innocent civilians are caught in the crossfire. In response to the rising violence, French authorities have attempted to crack down on the city's gangs. In recent years, special police units have been deployed to Marseille, to target drug trafficking operations and dismantle the organized crime networks that fuel the violence. However, these efforts have been met with limited success. The city's sprawling and densely populated suburbs provide ample hiding places for criminals, and corruption within local government and law enforcement has further complicated efforts to restore order. Moreover, Marseille's socioeconomic issues, such as poverty and high unemployment, particularly among the youth, have created an environment where organized crime can flourish. Young people in these neighborhoods often see drug dealing as their only means of financial survival, further perpetuating the cycle of violence. Despite its dangerous reputation, Marseille remains a major tourist destination with millions of visitors every year. Areas like the Vieux-Port, Old Port, the Basilica of Notre-Dame de la Garde, and the Calanques National Park are popular with tourists and generally safe during the day. However, visitors are warned to exercise caution, particularly at night, and avoid venturing into the northern suburbs, where much of the gang violence occurs. Now, for this next place, I know you've heard a lot of stories about it and also seen a lot of its activities in the news and most social media platforms, but how much do you think you know about Ukraine? When discussing the most dangerous places in Europe, many people immediately think of Ukraine, a country that has endured political turmoil, internal conflict, and full-scale war for nearly a decade. Once known for its rich history and culture, Ukraine has tragically become synonymous with war and instability, especially since the onset of the Russo-Ukrainian War, which escalated dramatically in 2022. While Europe is generally perceived as a relatively peaceful region, Ukraine's geopolitical reality makes it one of the continent's most dangerous places. The war in Donbass, located in eastern Ukraine, began in 2014 following Russia's annexation of Crimea. Pro-Russian separatists, allegedly backed by Moscow, declared independence for the regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, leading to a violent conflict that has claimed over 13,000 lives and displaced more than 1.5 million people. The battle lines were drawn between Ukrainian forces and separatist groups, and even after 8 years, heavy fighting and sporadic ceasefire violations continued. The region is dangerous not just because of active fighting, but also due to the widespread use of landmines and unexploded ordnance. According to the United Nations, Ukraine is one of the most heavily mined countries in the world, leading to numerous civilian casualties. In 2019, Serhiy, a 12-year-old boy from a small village near the front lines, was playing outside when he stumbled upon what he thought was a rock. Unfortunately, it was an unexploded grenade, a remnant of the ongoing conflict. The explosion left Serhiy severely injured, costing him his leg. His story is not unique, as thousands of children in the region have suffered injuries due to landmines and explosives that litter the war-torn landscape. The already tense situation escalated in February 2022, when Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine. This war, considered the most significant conflict in Europe since World War II, has transformed Ukraine into a battlefield stretching from Kiev in the north to Mariupol in the south. Russian forces targeted critical infrastructure, including hospitals, schools, and residential areas, leading to widespread civilian casualties. The war is not only dangerous for the soldiers, but also for ordinary citizens. Airstrikes, missile attacks, and urban warfare have resulted in countless deaths, forcing millions of Ukrainians to flee their homes. Despite international efforts to broker peace and deliver humanitarian aid, the situation remains extremely volatile and life-threatening. One of the most heart-wrenching stories to emerge from the conflict involves Oksana Belina, a Russian journalist covering the invasion for an independent media outlet. In March 2022, she was killed by Russian shelling while filming the destruction in Kiev. Oksana's death serves as a sobering reminder of the dangers faced by journalists and civilians caught in the crossfire of a devastating war. The war has not only led to direct violence, but also caused a humanitarian crisis of unprecedented scale. The invasion has displaced more than 8 million people internally, with millions more fleeing to neighboring countries such as Poland, Romania, and Hungary. The situation has left people struggling to access basic necessities such as food, water, and medical care. In the besieged city of Mariupol, thousands of civilians were trapped for months without access to humanitarian corridors. leaving them exposed to starvation and disease. The harsh winters in Ukraine, combined with Russia's targeting of critical energy infrastructure, have left many cities without electricity or heating. For those who remain in conflict zones, the freezing temperatures and lack of basic supplies are as lethal as the warfare itself. A tragic example of this humanitarian catastrophe comes from the siege of Mariupol. In March 2022, a Russian airstrike targeted a theater where hundreds of civilians, mostly women and children, were sheltering. Despite the word children being clearly written outside the building, the airstrike killed at least 600 people. Survivors recall the horror of being buried under rubble for hours, with rescuers facing constant shelling while trying to save lives. This event became one of the deadliest and most infamous attacks on civilians during the war. Another factor contributing to Ukraine's danger is the risk of nuclear disaster. Ukraine is home to Chernobyl, the site of the worst nuclear accident in history, and also houses numerous other nuclear power plants. The fighting has raised concerns about the safety of these facilities. In March 2022, Russian forces seized the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's largest, causing international alarm. The facility has since been the site of shelling, raising fears of another nuclear catastrophe that could have devastating consequences far beyond Ukraine. Additionally, the war has led to widespread environmental degradation. Military activity has resulted in the destruction of ecosystems, pollution of water sources, and the release of hazardous materials into the environment, all of which pose long-term risks to human health. In the same year 2022, after Russian forces captured the Chernobyl exclusion zone, workers at the site were taken hostage and forced to work under extreme stress with little access to food or rest. For days, the world feared that damage to the reactor could lead to another nuclear disaster. Fortunately, a crisis was averted, but the incident highlighted how quickly things could spiral out of control in a conflict zone with nuclear risks. The consequences of the war in Ukraine extend far beyond its borders. Millions of refugees have fled to other parts of Europe, creating a crisis for neighboring countries, while the conflict has also led to skyrocketing food and energy prices globally. The war has disrupted supply chains, especially in critical areas like grain exports, exacerbating hunger in regions reliant on Ukrainian agriculture. In addition, the ongoing conflict has led to tensions between NATO and Russia, raising concerns about the potential for a broader war involving other European nations. With both sides engaging in military exercises and deploying more troops to the region, the risk of escalation remains ever present, making Ukraine a focal point for global geopolitical instability. Anastasia Yalanskaya, a 26-year-old Ukrainian woman, dedicated herself to delivering food and supplies to families and animal shelters in war-torn Kyiv. Tragically, in March 2022, while she was returning from delivering aid, her car was ambushed by Russian soldiers, and she was killed. Her story became a symbol of the sacrifices made by ordinary people in the face of extraordinary violence. Ukraine, once a place of vibrant culture and proud history, now stands as the most dangerous country in Europe due to the ongoing war. With civilians bearing the brunt of the violence, children growing up in the shadow of conflict, and entire cities reduced to rubble, the toll of the war is staggering. As the world watches and international efforts to negotiate peace continue, the people of Ukraine endure hardship and danger on a scale unmatched elsewhere in Europe today. Now, with this information, do you think some people will still find their way to Ukraine in search of the thrill of danger? Will you intentionally put yourself in harm's way because of the thrill that comes with it? Let us know in the comments and also await our next mind-blowing video beyond continental lines.